All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, in life, it's amazing what people will tolerate when they've made a big investment in something. It's like when a man has a date with a very pretty female that he's been infatuated with for a long time, and he's gone out and he's bought a new outfit, he's bought some new shoes, he's taken her to a very fancy restaurant, and she has a funky attitude. He might be more willing to tolerate the funky attitude because of what he's hoping the payoff will be at the end of the night or the end of the second date, which is to hit this broad up and send her on her way if that attitude is a basic part of who she is as a person. But if it's just an average little thotty, you're going to cut the broad off right away because it's like, this broad is not worth shit. I'm not going to tolerate her nonsense. When I look at the Boston Celtics, I say to myself, did they not trade Kyrie Irving at the trading deadline because they really feel like they have a chance to win a championship? Or did they not trade him because they traded away so much to get him? Makes you wonder. I do believe that if Danny Ainge had his druthers, he would have moved Kyrie. As I look at how they're playing right now and how he's responding, I have very little doubt in my mind that he's going to leave. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
What's your confidence level in this team going forward? Huh? What's your confidence level in the team going forward?
What do you mean?
Just in terms of, like, you know, you got
what kind of question is that?
A legitimate question.
That's the question that he asked you, brother. And your response seems to denote to me that you don't have much confidence in your team. You just don't want to say it, so you try to evade it by ridiculing the question. All you had to say is, look, right now we're in a rough spot. We're going to have to come together. And when the playoffs come, hopefully we're going to be picking up our stride. That's it.
I mean, I just, you know,
Nah.
how do you feel about this team?
Next question.
Kyrie's going to need some media training. Let me say this. If he and Kevin Durant think that they're going to come to the New York Knicks and run that next question stuff, somebody better let them know. The New York media will not tolerate that shit here. They will not tolerate that bullshit here. You better be ready to answer questions, and when the going gets tough, that's when you're going to have to show your greatest amount of resolve. I just don't think that Kyrie or KD are particularly built for what they may be hoping they're built for. I just don't think so. No, I think that Kyrie is more likely to let it roll off of his back and just have a little attitude than KD, who might get broken down a bit. And, you know, sometimes they say you never know somebody until you live with them. Kyrie and KD are very close friends, but playing together might fracture their relationship, especially if neither one of them knows how to handle the media very well.
Celtics have not won since the All-Star break and are 5th in the East behind the 76ers with 20 games to go. Now, let's get you back to First Take.
Next question. See you, Kyrie. The C's fall for the 4th straight game, this time to the Trailblazers. With all the talent they have on paper, yet they are 5th in the East. Jalen Rose is in the building. Good to see you.
You too.
Max.
Yep.
What have the Celtics done wrong? I'm real confused.
Let me say this very quickly. What the Celtics have done wrong is they've hamstrung Danny Ainge. I think that Danny was ready to move Kyrie at the trading deadline for Anthony Davis, and they told him no. I believe that Danny Ainge was going to move Kyrie for Anthony Davis, maybe package Kyrie with Jaylen Brown and a draft pick, or Kyrie, Jaylen Brown, a draft pick, and maybe another player, who knows. And then just elevate Terry Rozier to the starting point guard and see where it goes from there. But ownership told him, Celtics ownership told him no. We traded away Isaiah, we traded away Jay Crowder, we traded away, I think, a draft pick to get Kyrie. We're going to see this thing out. And we believe that we have a real chance of winning a championship. But from what I'm seeing right now, I could easily see the Celtics going out in the first round. Now, they're the biggest conundrum to me of any team in the Eastern Conference because, once again, they have the highest ceiling and also the lowest floor, in my view. So if they were to flip a switch in the playoffs and make it all the way to the finals, it wouldn't shock me. If they were to go out in 5 games to the Indiana Pacers in the first round, that wouldn't shock me either.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, because when this topic came up before the trade deadline, I said, you know what Kyrie's about once the playoffs start.
Yeah.
You have a chance to win the whole thing this year if every single thing goes right. It's not impossible. It's in there somewhere. You just got to ride it out. You're going to lose him at the end of the season. You're going to lose him. However, at this moment in time, and maybe he'll prove me wrong in the playoffs, right now, based on what I've seen, they should have traded Kyrie before the deadline.
I kind of agree with you, sir. I kind of agree with you, sir. In order for Kyrie to prove you wrong, he's going to have to ball out in the playoffs, and they're going to have to, at the very least, get to the NBA Finals.
That was the mistake. That was the mistake.
Jalen Rose is incredulous. I think that Molly likes that take, though.
It's a mistake. They're going to lose him at the end of this season for nothing. So if you don't make a real run, it was a waste. And
I agree.
And right now, let's face it, the East all got
I tell you, Kyrie be cooking these dudes, boy. He be cooking Dame Lillard.
better. Toronto got better. Milwaukee got better at the deadline. Philadelphia got better. All those teams may have already been better than the Celtics. I'll tell you what, the Celtics better get rid of Indiana. They better get rid of Indiana out of the top 4. Because if they don't, they could be facing a first-round exit.
Wouldn't shock me.
They should have traded Kyrie.
I think that's utterly ridiculous.
I don't think that's ridiculous. I really don't. They've lost 6 straight right now, and there are very clear chemistry issues. I'm leaning more towards Max than towards Stephen A., but Kyrie and the Celtics can still redeem themselves and prove Max Kellerman and myself wrong. We'll see.
There's no way in hell they should have traded Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, listen, you're the Boston Celtics. As constructed, you are a championship contender.
Allegedly.
As constructed, okay? Now, are they playing up to snuff? No. Am I pleased with what I'm seeing? No. But the playoffs aren't here, and I'm not trying to shove aside, Jalen, the regular season and act like that doesn't mean anything or whatever. But what I'm saying is, do I have faith that Kyrie Irving going to show up come playoff time? You damn right I do.
Well, I have confidence that he's going to show up come playoff time. Faith is a very strong word. It's not like Kyrie has ever led a team to a championship. Now, he was an extremely important component on a championship team. But with him being the alpha on a squad and leading them to a championship run, he's never done that. So I'm not quite sure how you could have quote-unquote faith in that. I think that maybe confidence is a better word. But that's saying a lot because his teammates do not appear to want to see him do well as the leader of their team.
I do. Let me tell you what the Celtics need to do. They don't need to trade anybody. What they need to
Well, they can't trade anybody. The trade deadline's over.
do is to make sure I'm going to sit up there and tell you take Marcus Smart, who, by the way, made a pivotal error with that shot selection late in the game last night. They had an opportunity to pull it, I think, within 3 or whatever. Bad shot, led to a score by Portland. Basically, that was the game. Damian Lillard show up, we get all of that. But this is what Boston needs to do. Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens need to take Gordon Hayward, leave him on the bench. They need to prioritize playing Jaylen Brown with Jason Tatum.
Well, I've been saying that for the longest time, but the real issue is that Gordon Hayward is being paid too much money. They're not going to sit him on the bench, Stephen A. Smith. This is not high school basketball. It's not AAU. It's not college. These are not venues where we're just going to play whoever's playing the best. It does not work like that in the professionals. There's also a factor of we're paying this guy. We have to let him play himself into proper conditioning and proper shape so that he can help us, hopefully, somewhere down the line.
Put Jaylen Brown back in that start lineup. Put him in the lineup with Tatum, with Horford, with Morris, with Kyrie. Let Marcus Smart come off the bench again with Rozier, okay? And they've got to be your top 7. That's what I believe. I'm not saying there is a place for others. I'm not advocating that no one else plays. No, that Gordon Hayward and others don't get their minutes. But I'm telling you right now, the team that went to the conference finals, part of the reason was they were thoroughbreds. They were long, they were athletic, and they went after it, and they were hungry. And they knew that they didn't have to worry about getting yanked if they made a mistake here or there. They were the team. Kyrie's going to be there instead of Rozier. Go with who you had last year instead of, and you have Kyrie in there, have Rozier coming off the bench instead of starting like he was last year in the playoffs, obviously. Have Rozier and Marcus Smart. That's what you need to do. You don't need to trade. You didn't need to trade Kyrie. You should have had those guys in the lineup long ago.
Right, but bro, that's really not what Max Kellerman is talking about. The reason why he stated that the Celtics should have traded Kyrie is because he understands that it appears as if Kyrie is not coming back after this season. You're still talking about what's going to happen this season. All of that is speculative. Max Kellerman is thinking about next year, and that's based on the presumption that the Celtics are probably not going to win the championship.
You know what the Celtics did wrong? They got complacent. Over the last
I agree with that.
couple of years, we've lauded, and rightfully so, the moves of Danny Ainge. How they've been able to acquire lottery picks, how they've been able to acquire first-round picks, how they basically fleeced the Cavs to get Kyrie Irving. We talked all about those moves, and those were terrific. But the rest of the conference got better. Even during this year, you saw the Bucks add Mirotic. You saw the Raps add Gasol. Indiana added Wes Matthews. The Sixers added Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler. Who did the Celtics add? Nobody. And you know when you do that for a team that went to the conference finals last year, but is not meeting expectations this year, you're telling your team we're really playing for the playoffs.
Who do you add?
But
Jalen?
Jalen, they did add people because Gordon Hayward and Kyrie couldn't play in the end, so it's almost like they added players.
Correct.
Right, and Max Kellerman said, well, who are they going to add when they have so many great players? To Jalen's point, and to certain points that I've made over the course of this season, if they would have traded a couple of those young guys for a player like a Tobias Harris, who's in that 26, 27-year-old age range, he would have fit better with Kyrie because his sense of purpose would have been much more along the lines of a Kyrie Irving. His sense of urgency would have been there. Those young players like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they're still looking to have, their 21, their 22 point per game seasons. They're still looking to try to see if they can make all-star teams. They don't fit in well with Kyrie.
Correct. And so now you bring back Gordon Hayward as your highest paid player and had 3 points last night. Okay? You bring back Al Horford, who's not an all-star this year. You wanted Tatum to take the all-star leap this year. It did not happen.
Right, because he was trying to exhibit the Mamba mentality. And you cannot have multiple Mamba players on one team because Kyrie is already the Mamba alpha on that squad. So, like I said before, that was never going to work.
So now you give the ball to Kyrie, and rightfully so. He was actually dazzling last night. The problem was when he's at his best, it's 3 assists. It's 5 assists.
Well, not quite. He had a stretch where he was scoring 30, 35 points and dishing out 10, 12, 13 assists earlier this season. He has to get back to that. And that's my issue with Kyrie. He has the power to empower his teammates. So whenever he acts as if he does not know what's going on or why there's a disjointing between himself and the rest of his teammates, he has to look at himself.
And 25, 30 points. And so now everybody else is standing around looking like it's my turn.
But let me ask you a question. Was it complacency, Jalen, or a belief in what you had? There's a difference. In other words, if you just sitting there lollygagging around, we're going to be all right come playoff time. We'll see what happens then. We're going to go after Anthony Davis this summer. We'll make our moves then. That's entirely different than saying, okay, this crew we believe in. See, I think it's the former. I think they believed in their crew, which is why what Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens has done is so egregious. Because to me, Brad Stevens, the coach, he's a hell of a coach, okay? But what happens is, don't tell me that when you came from Butler, man, you ain't Duke and you come to the NBA. You were at Butler and you coaching the Boston Celtics, the second most storied franchise in basketball annals. You can't tell me, why were you relevant at Butler? Gordon Hayward. That was your star. Don't tell me you don't have that strong level of affection for him, that you didn't try to look out for him, that didn't get in the way.
Well, Stephen A., I think that there's a component of that, the Brad Stevens, Gordon Hayward affinity, but there's also a component, let's be for real, there's also a component, once again, of we're paying this guy $32 million. You think that if Brad Stevens was playing Gordon Hayward too many minutes and Danny Ainge saw that, and Danny Ainge and the upper management or the ownership did not want that to happen, it will continue to happen? It's very obvious that Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens are in lockstep when it comes to Gordon Hayward, so you can't just blame him for that.
And I don't care what anybody says about that.
The problem is this: if you're the Celtics, who do you bring in who's better on paper than what you got already? And how do you acquire that player? So, for example, Gordon Hayward, if you were to move him now, like let's say you said, forget about Allegiance, coach, he's making too much money to sit on the bench and not play minutes. Maybe he'll be good in the future. He's still not recovered from the injury. You got to move him. You're selling low. You're not going to get what you need. You could get.
But I'm not advocating moving him.
Al Horford, same sort of thing.
I like Al Horford.
Right. You're going to trade Brown or Tatum, these two young cats, unless there's a superstar involved. The point is, when you look at the team, who do you bring in? You say you're playing instead of that guy. And what do you give up for that dude? When I look at the team, what I see are guys who don't want to play with Kyrie.
I agree.
They play better when he's not on the court.
Correct. And here's why.
Well, I think they play harder when he's not on the court. They play better because they're more interested in what's going on offensively, which is really not their job because they are role players, believe it or not. No matter what they feel or what they think about themselves, they are role players in the grand scheme of things when it comes to winning a championship. And Richard Jefferson touched on this a couple of weeks ago when he stated that their role players do not want to accept their role. So there's an issue with them. There's an issue with Kyrie not empowering his teammates properly. And there's an issue with the coach not enforcing the roles of their role players.
A team can go undefeated and win the championship. They still won't bring back the same crew. The reason why is the complacency I'm talking about. Each guy settles into his role. Everybody feels...
Not just complacency. The reason why championship teams don't bring back their entire roster is that other teams across that league want to take their best players and even their coaches.
He feels good about what they accomplished. Terry Rozier looks at himself as Scary Terry. Jaylen Brown sees himself as the player that he was in the playoffs last year. When you take that away from those guys, it's like putting toothpaste back in the tube. They don't want to.
I want to challenge you with what you're saying in this regard, though. I'm going back to Kyrie, and I'm only saying this because I need your input here. Here's my problem with what you're saying. We say they don't look right with Kyrie. They look better without him. Are we sure about that? Remember this. I believe you if there's no Gordon Hayward. But if you're trying to ingratiate Gordon Hayward in the mix and Max has a look, and you always interrupt me with that point, it's almost like you don't want me to say something about Gordon Hayward. I don't understand it. Gordon Hayward has hurt the development of Tatum, of Brown.
I agree. I made a video stating that unequivocally, Gordon Hayward is the real problem with the team, not Kyrie. But when you combine Gordon and Kyrie together, it's almost like a package deal in the minds of the younger players.
Of Terry Rozier, when Terry Rozier had to come off the bench and be in the lineup with him. I'm lying about that?
You're not lying, but here's what happened. The Celtics used to be an effort team that beat you with their will.
Agreed.
That had skill. Now they have so many individual parts, they're not a team. Like when we talk about the Celtics, we're going to overvalue them as individuals. But guess what they're not better than? The Raptors. They're not better than the Bucks. And we know that they have the Greek freaking Kawhi, but then when you start to look at the other parts...
I want to piggyback off that.
And when you talk about the Celtics parts, you'll start to rank the Celtics players better than the players on those two teams.
I want to piggyback off that.
That's close, though. It's close. I would say that the Celtics individual players, you would rank higher than Milwaukee, but Toronto, I'm not quite so sure.
Okay, that's the whole thing about these Celtics. We know that Smart and Rozier and Morris at the beginning of the season supposed to be off the bench. Good, deep team, great coach. But really, we were wowed by the starting five. Oh, my God. Kyrie is a superstar. Horford's an all-star.
Also, keep in mind, the Toronto Raptors defeated the Golden State Warriors twice before they got Marc Gasol. So if they make it to the finals, they're going to be a problem for whoever they face.
Tatum is an emerging superstar, it looked like. Brown might be an all-star in the future. Gordon Hayward's been an all-star. What a starting five. All of a sudden, the only all-star on the team is Kyrie, and here's the problem. This is where your point comes in. They don't want to play with him. When you say it's Horford, when you say it's Hayward, go put those stats up again, guys. Let's have the producers put those stats up again. Look at the numbers with and without Kyrie. Just Kyrie. The plus-minus, it's a huge difference. The 0-6 to 6-0. I mean, that's not... Look at that. That's with and without Kyrie.
So
Right, but those are the last 12 games where you've had that disparity. Kyrie's been the lead guard for most of the season. So, I mean, we could pick and choose different stretches. Gordon Hayward has been an issue for the entire season.
Is it his play? Is it his attitude? Are we saying he's a cancer in the locker room?
I'm saying I think it's nuanced. Jalen just hit it. These guys need to beat you as a cohesive unit. They have to do it with will. They don't have the talent, actually, to do it another way. But when Kyrie's on the court, they don't function that way.
How about this? You just talk...
Because they don't accept their roles. It's a psychological issue. Too many role players who want to be lead players. Too many Chiefs, not enough Indians.
Just talked about the Celtics starting five. They don't have the best starting five in their own conference.
Agreed.
Philadelphia does.
Agreed.
That's what I mean.
At least on paper, anyway.
What ends up happening is when you take Jaylen Brown 3, Tatum 3, Smart in the lottery, now all of a sudden Smart gets a new contract, and rightfully so. You want those lottery picks to become a cohesive team, except they're individuals.
And I feel you on
that. And that's why the teams that they seem to have more talent than have better records.
But I'm not refuting what you're saying. And I get it. I'm not
let me
saying
say one more thing.
Go ahead.
Portland's better than them.
I agree with that as well. Going into that game last night, I predicted Portland to defeat the Celtics. Portland, from top to bottom, they have a better team than the Celtics do. Portland, they're a dark horse in the Western Conference.
We sitting here talking about what's wrong with the Celtics. Portland is a better team than them.
Stop right there. And you see, you're going to incriminate yourself because we've seen plenty of situations where the better team in the regular season collapse come playoff time. So stop that. That's number one. Last point. Again, you took Jaylen Brown out of the starting lineup. So if you take those guys out of the starting lineup and you try to reinsert Gordon Hayward into the mix at the same time with the 25-minute restrictions, but you're giving them 26 minutes and stuff like this, and it's getting in the way, there's going to be a collateral effect. It's going to happen. That's all I'm saying.
Jaylen, I'm being told Jacoby's looking for you. You got a show to do.
Kyrie or Lillard? Who do you want? Kyrie or Lillard?
Kyrie.
Who you want?
Lillard.
Kyrie or Lillard? Who do you want? Who's better?
I'm about to answer your question.
Lillard's almost 2 years older, by the way.
I'm going to tell you why. Lillard's been in the West his entire career, right? His team has made the playoffs every season. He was all NBA, and he's allowed players like C.J. McCollum to develop, allowed players like Nurkic to develop.
Let me say this very quickly because Jaylen's making some relevant points, but also remember when Dame Lillard first came into the NBA, LaMarcus Aldridge was already on that squad. I believe they also had Nicholas Batum on that squad. When Kyrie first came into the NBA, the Cleveland Cavaliers, they were a moribund franchise who was still suffering from the departure of LeBron James. So it's very difficult to compare those two. When it comes to the playoffs, Kyrie has had bigger performances in the playoffs for his squad. Even though Lillard has gone to the playoffs, he's never gotten past the second round. They face certain teams, but I have to give him a major demerit for his performance last season against the New Orleans Pelicans.
It's a pickup for me.
People
it's a
like
pickup for me.
I'm saying, well, pick them if you have to.
Oh, and by the way, they played last night.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
that's why I'm asking.
Right now, it would be Lillard because Lillard, like you said, there's never any issues with Lillard, ever.
Okay.
Well, there's never any issues, but there's also no championships.
Okay. Dame time's up.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. We'll see how things go with Kyrie, but as of right now, I have to agree with Max Kellerman that the Boston Celtics probably should have traded him prior to the deadline, but I understand why they didn't do it. They still believe that this team has a chance to make a major playoff push, and they still do as of right now, but they're going to have to make a very drastic turn when it comes to the energy in the locker room and on the basketball floor. Because when you start hearing multiple players say the same thing, Marcus Morris or the other kid that they have, the backup guard, Marcus Smart, it's very obvious that there's some major personality changes that have to be made. So peace.